Hey guys, I wanted to show you how to make mozzarella cheese scratch from home. All right, so what we got to do is we got to warm up some milk. We're going to separate the whey from the cheese, and that will make our cheese. We'll make that into a ball. We'll stretch it, warm it up, put salt and oregano in it, and have a homemade mozzarella ball. So what we start with is a gallon of whole D milk, vitamin D milk, basically whole milk. We need some vinegar and only about 9 ounces of it. And what we're going to do first is we're just going to pour the milk into the pan. Okay, we're going to start it and put it on kind of a low flame and pour the first half gallon in. Okay, then the second. Try not to splatter it everywhere. I'll get in trouble. Okay, so now we have our milk in there. And what we're gonna do is take a wooden spoon with holes in it, and we're just gonna keep it stirring to keep the heat going equally. And we're gonna take it up to 110 degrees. Once it reaches 110 degrees, we'll add the vinegar, but very slowly and stirring the whole time. And that's when the whey will get separated. And we have a thermometer here that will tell us how hot it is. Right now it's still very cold. It's only 55 degrees. So we're gonna let it warm up nice and slow. Turn that down just a little bit. You can see it's about 5. And I'll just stir it as much as I can. All right, when it gets a little warmer, I'll turn it back on. All right, it's been warming up for just about 4 minutes. And I keep taking the lid off and stirring. And it's probably getting to about 90 degrees right now. It says 63. Let's see how quick it goes up. Yeah, it's only about 85 still. So, keep warming it up. Okay, I've been stirring it for a little bit longer. Been stirring it and getting it all ready. As you can see, it's now 114 degrees, so that's well over 110. And now the fun part starts. So what we got to do is just a little bit at a time. We're going to leave the fire going. We're just going to pour a little bit of vinegar, just a little bit of vinegar. And we're going to stir it. And you'll see the transformation. I'll try to get my fingers out of the way. There we go. And you're going to start seeing some clumping going on. What that is it's separating the whey from the milk, from the cheese. And it's quite interesting how chemistry works here. But you're literally going to see almost a milky water away from the milk. And I'm still using that same, and you can see on the wooden spoon some clumps already. But it gets much, much worse, and it actually kind of gets a little thick on my end. I'm just pouring a little bit in at a time and stirring it in. And bigger clumps. And you can see almost inside the milk, the cheese already separating. Yep. See how it's turning watery? So let me add the rest. It's the rest of the vinegar. That was about 9 ounces of vinegar and maybe 10. It calls for 7 per half gallon, but I've never really needed to use that much. Okay, so now that we can see that it's separated like this, we're going to turn off the fire and we're going to let it sit for a few minutes. And you'll see it will continue to separate, and that's almost clear water now. And then I'll show you how I get it out. Okay, it's only been about, this phone is very difficult sometimes to video from, but it's only been about 4 minutes. And as you can see, I don't need much more time. That's about as clear as it's going to get. And now I'm just going to kind of try to separate a little bit more and clump it together. And that will be our ball that we will work with. Look at that. All that is cheese. Let it kind of fall off there. Put it in here. Oops. It's amazing, isn't it? And those of you that know that I'm allergic to mammal meat, what you might not know is I'm actually allergic to what is left in this water. I'm allergic to what's called the proteins or the sugars in the proteins of mammal meat, which is whey protein. So I need to stay away from this. So the last thing I want to do is drink this water, that's for sure. And what's interesting is I can get away with drinking milk sometimes. Sometimes it'll give me a headache or cold sore. All right, so that's about as much damage as we can do. And as you can see, there's no more milk in there. It's almost all water. And we can pour that right down the sink. All right, so what's left is this. And this is our cheese. And we're gonna stretch this out, warm it up again. We're actually gonna warm it up to about 130 degrees, but we'll do that in the microwave. But the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of put some plastic gloves on, or these gloves on, and kind of squeeze and pull on it a lot like taffy. And it won't be real good at first until we warm it up to about 135, 140 degrees, and then it'll get really stringy, just like string cheese. And then after that, we'll add salt. And it's supposed to be 2 tablespoons for 1 gallon. I don't like putting that much salt in, so that's about 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And then I'll put some base or some seasoning in there. So, all right. Right now it's about 124, 125 degrees because I put it in the microwave for 30 seconds after I wrung it out. So now I'll pick it up and do the same thing. I'm just going to kind of wring it out, try to get as much of that whey out of there as I possibly can. And at the same time, I'm kind of stretching it. And you'll see that right now it just kind of comes apart. When we get it up to about 140 degrees, as I talked about earlier, it will become a lot stringier and much stretchier, and we'll be able to work with it a little bit more. But as you can see, more and more whey is coming out, which is fine, and it's going to be more milkier than what I just poured in the sink, which was almost completely clear from the pot. So, okay. So this is our mozzarella ball. I'll stick it back in the microwave for another 30 seconds, and then we'll start up the video again. All right, that's another 30 seconds. That's a total of 1 minute so far. But we stick this in there. It goes right to 135, 160. So it's not quite 140, but that's all right because I'm gonna mess with it some more. And you'll see that the more I heat this up, the more it's easier to work with. And you can see now, look at that. See how it's starting to pull like string cheese? And that's exactly what we want. All right, so the next time we get it out of the microwave, which we're only going to do about 20 seconds this time because it's already pretty hot. It's almost too hot to mess with, but you can see that it's really working. I'll pour this little bit of whey out. Okay, and then the next time we get it out, we'll add the salt and the seasoning. Start. All right, so we did our last 30 seconds. And you can see it goes right up to, there's 132, it's going to go on up. $136. Yeah, you can't touch the plate because the plate was cold and I just did. There's about 140, it's 138.0. All right, very good. All right, so what I'm going to do before I even start messing with it is I'll just start adding just a little bit of the salt. That was about half the salt that I wanted to use. And I'll fold it into the cheese. And you can see now it's really stretchy. Okay? I'm going to put it back in. Make kind of a pizza out of it. Put the rest of the salt. Alright? And here's this Italian pure blend. You can use anything. Gina and I like to just add, and I'll just do a light mist over it. Maybe a tablespoon, not even a half a tablespoon. But you'll see how it spreads throughout the cheese as I fold it. And you can actually see it when you make cuts in it later for the tomato desserts. Caprese. All right, so now that we're ready to turn it into a ball again, this sometimes is the hardest thing. I see chefs do this and it looks just like a perfect spear. You're not going to do that, especially when it's very stringy like this. And I'm not quite sure how they do it, but I'll make it as good as I can. And I'm going to turn it into kind of a round loaf of bread. That's what I'm going to do. So there it is, and that's what it's going to look like. But the next thing I'm going to do is get some cold water. I'll put it into a ball again, and then put it right into the cold water where it will kind of gel. So I'll be right back with you with cold water. All right, as you can see, it's spread out and got kind of flat. So I'm going to turn it into a ball again. And I got my cold water here. And some people, Gina and I were just talking, some people like to put ice cubes in it. I found that when you do with ice cubes, it gets really slimy. So the best thing to do is get it the best you can into a ball. I mean, you're going to cut it up and put it on the tomatoes anyway, right? Or put it on top of pizza. So it doesn't really matter how perfect it looks. Here we go. So I put it in the cold water. It will start gelling. And then after a couple minutes, we'll take it back out, put it back on the plate, and then put it in the refrigerator. And after that, we can cut it up and eat it. All right, here's the final product after it sat in the fridge for a night. And I'll show you it cut up. So, final product ready to eat. Shortly thereafter.